Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As promised to you some time ago, that we will conduct a session with the leading names in alternative media. You all know that for many years now, people have not been happy with the way the mainstream media, what we call the mainstream media. I have a problem with that term also because that would mean that we are the fringe. We are not the fringe. We would say that we are the mainstream. Nevertheless, whatever the media is, uh, known as popularly, has been delivering to us news, articles, presentations in a way that caters to a certain segment that we consider inimical to the interest of our civilization, of our nation. And whoever thought so also thought about a decade or so ago that it was not enough just complaining that we were not being served well. So they started ventures of their own with different thoughts, sometimes overlapping, sometimes divergent, but nevertheless, they form one large Hindu family, an international, a global Hindu family. We have two of them with us now. Ashish Dhar, the co-founder of Pragyata and Upward. You all are aware of him. You have all have heard him. You have read him, and he is a prominent voice of Dharma on social media and other platforms as well. Welcome to the show, Ashish. We also have with us Nitin Sridhar, who has been commenting on dharmic affairs for many years now. In fact, both our panelists were trained to be engineers. They were supposed to be technocrats, but they dedicated their intellect to the purpose of upholding and safeguarding and defending dharma. Nitin has been doing it on social media much before he had joined any media house, but then he joined a mainstream website called Newsgram. He later went to India Facts, and then you have also heard him speaking on different concepts. He is actually also an author. He has written a book on menstruation and how it is defined, how it is seen in Hinduism and other cultures. Welcome to the show, Nitin.
Thank you.
We are expecting Professor Rao to join us, and he has been sent the link. If he joins, as and when he joins, he'll be added. Ashish, first of all, to you. Pragyata is, I think, kind of an extension of Ashish Dhar. You know, the way Ashish Dhar thinks, the way he articulates, that is the style, that is the feel that one gets from the website Pragyata. And I believe, uh, you will of course be modest in your admission, but I believe you have got a superlative brain. You have a particular kind of articulation style that has a niche audience. It may, you may have dedicated followers, but not a huge, you would never be a sensation, maybe, if my assessment is correct. And I think you would also not like to be a sensation. But nevertheless, nevertheless, if we are to, push our agenda forward, if we have to make more and more people get our messages and try to understand what we are getting at, what is the crisis that we are facing, and how we are going to safeguard our civilization, it is important that voices like yours are heard. So, when you started with this venture, because Pragyata came up much before Upward, right? When you started with Pragyata, uh, did this cross your mind that maybe, I am beginning with on a very high pedestal? Maybe I should start a bit lower, something like that?
No, not really, Sujita. I think, Pragyata evolved with time as per the needs of as we understood how the so-called market functions. I mean, everyone has a market. I mean, ultimately, whatever you are producing, it gets consumed. And in that vocabulary, I think that our market sort of we understood, because coming from a non-journalism background, being a complete outsider to this world, the first couple of years I took to figure out what this is all about. You know, how do you broadcast your views? What kind of audience exists for such views, and so on and so forth. So initially, we started off as a online courses, pre-recorded courses on Indic knowledge systems. That was the initial idea. But soon we realized that there is too much effort that goes into it and not enough audience, uh, and even lesser of a paying audience. So it was very difficult for us to sustain that. Meanwhile, we also started a digital magazine section, something like a journal, and that really took off very well. And I realized that that is where most people would like to both contribute as well as consume what is broadcasted. So, so we sort of diverted into that space, and eventually abandoned. My good friend Nitin here is witness to that. We recorded a course with him, and he worked very hard, but ultimately that never got published. So I would like to take this opportunity to publicly apologize to him. but, but yeah, so that was how it was. And as far as the audience size and being a niche, that is most expected, because Pragyata, for uh, for what it's worth, is serious commentary on long-term issues. It's not a
Right.
current affairs channel. So, and it has been my uh, endeavor to make it more and more academic. Though I can't claim that I've fully succeeded in that, but yeah, I mean, at one point of time, I even wanted to make it a peer-reviewed journal. But there were several challenges to that, and mostly my time, which would go into that, because that would be a full-time thing, and I'm involved in other things as well. So that doesn't really work right now. But maybe in the future it would be a peer-reviewed journal. But the idea is to have serious content, which is which has a certain degree of credibility and standard.
Right. And subsequently, you expanded your portfolio. You also came to videos. So that was how Upward started. As I know you personally, and also I've been to your office, you have a competent group of people who help produce these videos. You also conceptualize what you would be doing, even in the medium of videos. It is often found that the long form is not that appreciated. Maybe something that you say over a period of 5 minutes to half an hour would be less popular than what you say in 30 seconds. But then you have not walked into the trap of sensationalism and being a TikToker, so to speak. Right. So that also must have been a challenge. You must have mulled over this in your office, whether to go for short 30-second clips, 1-minute clips, or to make more sense, dive deeper into aspects.
So we've done a bit of everything, though we've
Yes.
not gone to 30-second limit yet. But I think that is also worth exploring.
Hmm.
The challenge for us has not been uh, to increase the length of the videos, but to actually compress enough content within, let's say, a 5 to 10 minute range. So that's
Right.
a huge challenge, because most upward videos, the standard upward videos that come out, are in that range, 5 to 10 minutes, and sometimes it's very difficult to contain the script, the word count that would match that length, because there's so much to say. So that's been the challenge, and it's always and sometimes, in the video medium especially, what happens is that if you compress too much information within that time frame, it becomes so dense
Yeah.
that that the audience does not relate to it anymore. So that's the specific challenge of making videos.
Right.
But we with the other channel, like we've also launched a brand called Unroll. Earlier it was called Free. That we did during the last lockdown, and that
Yes.
took off very well. And most of the videos there are 2-minute videos.
Right. Right. Right.
Then we branched off into Hindi content with Chakshu Media, which is the latest.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And that has, our videos on. We've just done 3 experimental videos. So it's still in the beta state, so to speak. So
Right.
we've done one video on Khilafat movement. We did one video on ISK, that is Islamic State of Khorasan, and the Islamic State video breached the 1 million viewership mark. So it's been a very positive response. It was a 10 to 15-minute video. So we play in that mostly in that time frame between
Right.
5 to 15 minutes, because that's typically the kind of attention span.
So
that
I'll ask you in the next round as to how the audience response or the readership response has been. Before that, Nitin, you have not particularly founded any media company as such, but you are still widely read, widely followed, widely heard. And I have known you for the past 15 years. We first met over the platform called Orkut, which is no longer there. And of course, that was not as popular as Facebook or Twitter is today. So how did these people who were investing in alternative media come to know about you?
I think that happened over a period of time. How did people come to know about me? For till 2015, I was in a construction field, so I was not per se in the media or too much anything. But I have been consistently active on social media. I have been hyperactive during my Orkut days when I had too much time to spare. But then I think for 2-3 years I was less active. But since 2013, I have been active, especially on Facebook and then on Twitter. But more importantly, since my engineering days, that is since 2006, 2007, I've been active in contributing to commentary for socio-political and cultural commentary on various issues. So I used to contribute first on the Pioneer and Vijayvani.com, and later I have contributed across different platforms, including Buddha India and other places, and I maintain a blog. So I have been active quite a bit on social media with my writings, and I've consistently tried to not limit myself to social media posts, so to speak, but
Yes.
written longer pieces in my blog or on some portal here and there, and then use social media to kind of promote those content per se. So this is how a kind of that I started building my audience, so to speak. And then I think in 2015 I came out with my first book, Musings on Hinduism, and so all this kind of helped me to build my audience. And later, in 2015 I changed my career and shifted to journalism. I joined Newsgram as a content writer. I mean, based on all the past work on writing on various Indian issues, politics, and civilization issues. So it did certainly help me to land upon this job, because otherwise I have no qualification per se in journalism or any say English MA or something like that. So I
Right.
have a fully engineering background.
Right.
So from there, from Newsgram, later I joined India Pax in 2016 as its editor, and I was there till last year. Now I'm full time with Advaita Academy as a chief curator, and this is a video platform, not into any kind of news and all, but purely focusing on Hindu philosophy of Advaita Vedanta.
Right. Ashish, since you began, if you could enlist a few milestones on your journey, what you have achieved so far, or upward, and Pragyata have achieved so far?
That's milestones to thoda, I'll have to reorient myself.
Because before coming to challenges, I wanted to talk about some achievements. Yes.
So, most of the achievements that would come like that would be related to upward, because Pragyata has had a very niche audience. But with Pragyata also, we've been very lucky to have made an impact quite early on when the magazine started. And there were quite a few critical issues on which our posts uh, had had the effect of setting the agenda, which is what we really are out there for. Instead of being reactive and reacting to what the left says or the mainstream media says, and then you go about outraging on the social media that, oh, this is not correct, and fact check and all that. Setting the agenda is always much more desirable and has great impact. So one was when we did the article on Aghoris, which was in a way reactive because something had happened and we reacted to it. But from our side, it sort of set the narrative, because people had so many misconceptions about what constitutes the Agora way of practice.
Yes.
And the associated beliefs and the philosophy that goes behind it. And so that was one very impactful article, and I was so glad that it made a dent in the international scene itself. Then something similar happened with the Aryan invasion theory, when that self-confident buffoon Tony Joseph, when he came out with his book on Aryan invasion, which he completely based on the works of David Reich. We published a very long form article by Konrad Elst, which basically had it was almost it was almost a documentation of the debate from the 80s now, and what all went on. So that sort of shut everyone up, because there was no other portal which had that sort of comprehensive analysis of the thing. So likewise, there have been several other articles also.
Let me interrupt you here, because it wouldn't be just a pre-formatted 4-step program that we are doing right now. So let it be a free-flowing conversation, because this part of your answer reminded me of something. Your interview with the CEO of Op India, Mr. Roshan. Right. And also, when I announced today that there will be a session with you and Nitin, I was told Ashish Dhar has become too much of a trad. Now, I don't know what this term means, because I actually do not care. I only care for one large Hindu family. And there, as I said in the beginning, there can be divergence of views in between. But my question is, somewhat based on your last two answers. On the one hand, let's say when you are dealing with Aryan invasion theory, or you're talking about Aghoris, such programs have a repeat value. People would come back again and again to watch an upward presentation on that, or maybe to read an article that you have written. But at the same time, the flip side, unlike news, there won't be an instant viewership. So it's not like that you present something about Aghoris and immediately you get a 1 million views. But in due course, it may get up to 5 million views. You never know, because over a period of time. But as far as Ashish Dhar is concerned, I wouldn't say you are totally apolitical. Let's say when the Article 370 was virtually scrapped, people were looking forward to the views of personalities like you, like Sushil Pandit, as to what they are, the stakeholders are saying. And that is also about news. That is not just a documentation that Ashish Dhar thought of. It is something that came from the government, and then you were expected to react. At the same time, I see you quite actively, defending the Varna system, if not the caste system. that has both a news value and a documentation value. So there are overlaps, right? You wouldn't brand yourself or slot yourself in that, no, I'm not saying anything political at all.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, after all, whatever we are commenting on, and when it goes out into the public, it becomes political on its own. Whenever there is a group of people involved, and your message is disseminated to a large audience, then that itself becomes political, whatever the topic may be. I'm slightly averse, and increasingly getting more averse to electoral politics, because personally I find it ineffective and time-consuming and counterproductive, which is why I avoid, in my personal capacity, as much as I can, not to comment on that. But as far as political is concerned, political is about our collective life, and so everything that we do, like I said, is political. So
Right.
yeah, totally agree with that. That I am, not. It's not that our articles or our videos have no political; they are predominantly political.
Right. Nitin?
But about that thing, just before Nitin comes in, about
Yeah. Yeah.
Ashish becoming trad. That is because I spend too much time with talking to people like Nitin, and the entire blame goes to him.
Okay. No, but I think, Nitin, for a very long time, I haven't seen any political post from you. So maybe you have made a decision like that. Like another of our friend, Rajarshi Nandi, he hardly makes political posts. But once in a while, he does. I think you have completely abdicated. Is it?
See, no, I would not say I would abdicate it, because just today I made in Twitter I made a post which is political, in the sense that, in the context of the tree, the age-old tree, the sacred tree which has been torn down in Kashi. I said,
Akshavat.
that, yeah, Akshay,
Yes.
it survived so many onslaughts, even from Islamic invaders and others, but finally the secular bureaucracy of India tone it down, and with their apathy. So is it the fate of Hindu civilization that we will finally be defeated and dismantled by this secular apathy? So this is political. So I will not say that I'm apolitical. I have never been apolitical. But
Yes.
yes, as Ashish said, I am not too much nowadays invested in electoral politics, because in the larger, should I say, in the
Yes.
larger game, whether BJP wins or whether Congress wins, it does not matter. I mean, it matters, yes. Of course, it matters. Should not lose sight,
Yes.
but we
What you're
should also
saying
not
is that
lose.
we have certain agendas in our plan of things, our scheme of things. As and when we need politics to achieve those ends, we will exert pressure on the political powers so that those things, for example, freeing our temples. For that, we have to apply pressure on all governments, union government as well as the state governments. So then we have to be political.
Yes,
So to that extent,
yes,
Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev is political when he is asking the Tamil Nadu government to free the temples. There you have to be. There you have to be political.
yes. I mean, rather than using the term political, I think what is more important is we all need to be civilizationally aware of the civilizational issues. For
Yes.
example, the Shabarimala issue, for example, it has political dimension, but it is not just about politics. It has
Right.
multiple dimensions. It's a civilizational issue.
Yes.
In fact, it is in that background I wrote the book on menstruation. But my book is kind of academic. You won't see much politics within the book per se, but the book is a response to a kind of propaganda against Hindu practices, against academic propaganda, media propaganda. So the book is very much political in some sense, in the sense that it is a response to the current narrative. But as such, the content of the book is not political. And most
Right.
of my work have been like that, be it work on sati, be it work on varna issue, or be it work on abortion, or any other adultery, or homosexual marriages. I mean, I wrote a piece just recently on whether homosexual union can be called as vivaha or marriage. It is a very academic piece. It
Right.
examines the issue from a Shastri perspective, but it has real life implication, and it has political implications, so to speak.
Now let's take this, stretch this answer that I got, these answers that I got from both of you, to our next stage, which is about the challenges that we face. One of the challenges in being political whenever you are is cutting short the size of your market, or cutting short the size of your viewership. Let me share with the audience uh, an incident related to a very famous celebrity, Amitabh Bachchan. It was those days when he was the MP of Allahabad. In one of the tours, he was he had just finished a tour of Allahabad, and he was supposed to uh, board his helicopter and go back to Mumbai for some shooting or something else. And then I have read this in one of his interviews. A boy came running to him, pleading with him to leave politics, saying that not only I but my whole family has been a big fan of yours, but now we are in some kind of a dharm sankat, because the party that you stand for is not the party that we support. But we love you, and please, relieve us from this dharm sankat. Please resign. Please leave the Congress party. There is a film called Halla Bol, featuring Ajay Devgan, where the message is that a celebrity should never get into political affairs. Once he gets there, he becomes controversial. And then the number of people, take for instance, today's Swara Bhaskar, let's say, or, today's Kangana Ranaut. For the sake of freedom of expression, whatever they said, have they not affected the size of their audience? And somehow, does that not affect you too, Ashish Dhar and Nitin Sridhar, that when you take a position, let's say for Modi or against Modi, let's say against Modi, because you're considered in, a part of the Hindu Parivar, of which a subset is, Modi fans, BJP followers, etc., etc. So when you get into a debate with them, do you not risk the, affecting the readership or viewership of Upward or Pragyata?
Not really, Sujita, because the task that we have defined for ourselves is not an increase in reader base, but is discourse building. And which is why we primarily focus on introducing new ideas and things that others don't say, which is not just to be different or contrarian, but because there is a profound lack of originality in our on the so-called right-wing side, and the reason for that goes back to the lack of academic depth, because we have not enough representation within the academia, and because of that lack of academic research and rigor, the discourse on the right wing is very, very shallow and opportunistic. So in order to take a stand, you need to have a very consistent sort of framework according to which you view things. And that framework, because it does not exist for most people on this side of the fence, they have substituted that for a blind love for the party, which happens everywhere. I mean, even within a communist society, most people don't have the intellectual tools that the communist thought leaders do. But there is some trickling down of ideas there. So
Right.
they all seem very articulate and intelligent, even though they only throw labels.
Let me bring in an example to make it, more relevant to the context of Upward and Pragyata. You all know that I was the first national affairs editor of Swarajya. Now, it was launched with certain objectives in mind, and promoting BJP was not one of them. So somehow down the line, when it moved in that direction, I'm not criticizing my old employer. I'm just putting forward a perspective. Maybe the second editorial head that followed, Raghavan Jagannathan, he might have realized it too, that we are going a bit astray. So he wrote a few articles that were critical of the government. And immediately we had comments on social media saying we are stopping Swarajya subscription, because we do not like what Jaggi has written. So have you faced similar situations?
Oh, yes. But what
Yeah.
we do that on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
every day we get those kind of responses, and
Right.
all sort of abusive, not just critical, but abusive responses. What that does is that it strengthens your position in a way, because
Yes.
the people who really understand what you're saying without bias, even if they disagree with you,
Yes.
they sort of, that adds to your credibility, and they think that you're taking a principled stand, and they will come back to you even if you disagree. So
Right.
the point is not that your audience is all the time agreeing with you, but that they know that if we have to hear a credible opinion, this is
Right.
where we go.
Right.
And if
I would like to add
Yes.
here
Yes,
that
Nitin.
there are two things. One is I as a person, what is our stand on an issue as a person, but other is what is the stand of the media organization. It is okay for an individual to have a strong opinion on any issue. It may be pro, for, whatever it is. But for example, I was in Indiapex as the editor of that platform. So as an editor, I always entertained a spectrum of views within the non-left camp, a spectrum of views, even those views that I do not personally agree with. So as a platform, we always had a diversity of opinions, though those opinions largely uh, confined or largely were aligned to Indian or Hindu civilization ethos per se.
Right.
So, but this diversity of opinion is important on a larger scheme, and because of course, despite ensuring such a diversity of opinion, you will never be able to satisfy everybody. You
Yes.
will always,
And of
there
course,
will
you should
always be
have your own
detractors.
editorial position, like it is written in the disclaimer at the end of articles in several newspapers also, that the views expressed are personal, which means, whatever, let's say, Rajdeep Sardesai writes in Hindustan Times may not be the view of Hindustan Times. So,
I,
yeah,
I
so
would
that is,
also add
yes.
that the for in a online portal scenario, the personal views of the editor could be distinct from the view of the editorial
Even
team
that is
itself.
possible.
So
Yes,
the
yes.
editorial view of on a particular issue, yeah, it is very much possible, and this is a strong point. This is needed because otherwise, an editor's personal opinion will always be coloring what
Right,
he is publishing.
right.
That is always there. Editor always guides the publication in a particular direction, but if there is no spectrum of views entertained, then it will lead to lead to monotony, and you will
Right.
definitely lose readership. Focus direction, yes, but I say that I think even Ashish will agree that there is always a scope for a spectrum of views as long as it aligns in a large sense to the ethos of the publication.
Now let's come to a very tricky challenge which flows from this. On the one hand, we are talking about limited niche readership and viewership, and then we have challenges like division in our large Hindu family. So, keeping both these challenges in mind, how does money flow in, or does money come at all? Because a lot of us, most of us, or all of us, are doing what we are doing driven by conviction. We will continue to do this whether or not money comes. But then money is important. If you want better quality videos, if you want a person to dedicate a whole day for one article that you may finish in 7 or 8 minutes, you need to pay the poor guy. So the point is, how is that being taken care of? Ashish.
One, I mean, if you, like I said, if you build credibility and take principled stands, then people start to value what you're saying. Ultimately, what we are doing as alternative media is that we are trying to help people with making sense of what's going on. So we are empowering them to interpret the events around them through a consistent philosophical, civilizational framework. And when that happens, then they start valuing. If you are really doing your job well, then they start valuing what they're doing. And some of them would be driven to support you. But the risk with that is that you cannot depend on the crowd for support, because then what that does is, like in a in a mobocracy, what happens is that you start fearing if what you're saying is going to affect the
Yes.
mood of the crowd, and then you will have to
So
toe their
maybe
line.
we should look for donors who are ideological. They are, and they're very clear about, or more than donors, we need investors who are dedicated to the cause, who are not looking for a return on investment in cash terms, right?
That's slightly difficult to find, but
Hmm.
also when you say ideological, like we said, we are part of the so-called right wing in India,
I
and
hate that word.
yeah, me too. But I mean, for purposes of convenience, let's just say that we are part of
Yes.
the right wing.
Huh.
And the right wing itself has so much as subsections now. Like like you just referred to someone calling me a trad, though I've never said that. But people identify you with a
Hmm.
certain brand of the same ideology,
Right.
right?
Right.
All ideologies, ठीक है, they all are nationalists. But now even we are guilty of introducing the paradigm of civilizational versus territorial nationalism into the discourse. So
Right.
when that happens, then there are civilizational nationalists and territorial nationalists. And if you say something which is criticizing the territorial nationalists, then they will oppose you and they will not
Ah.
support you.
Hmm.
So the point is that, I mean, if you are dependent on the crowd for survival, then
Right.
uh,
Right.
it hinders your ability to articulate principled stands,
Yeah.
which is what discourse building is about, as I said.
Yeah.
But how we tackle that is that we take up a lot of other projects, because we have a, a team of animators, and we have
Yes.
ourselves. I've learned these skills myself also.
Hmm. Hmm.
Also acquired some illustration skills now. So
Right.
we do other projects on the side, and we have other things from where we run our चूल्हा जिससे चलता है, and then we don't really depend on the crowd that way.
Yeah.
Although I mean the funding that we get from the crowd is significant, and
Yes.
it's
Yes.
it's important to us, but we
Yeah.
don't want to depend.
Our people are emotional people after all. So we will get some funding. Nitin, I'll put the question in a bit different way, because you are not running any company. So, but you are an author. Now, as far as I understand the publishing industry, if let's say I am a nobody and I want to get my title published, I approach Penguin or HarperCollins or any of the big names, or even a small name, just one of the hundreds of publication houses in Daryaganj. I will be told, well, we have no problem in publishing your book, but you have to shell out, let's say, 2 lakh rupees to 5 lakh rupees. A part of that money will go into a book launch where you will get enough publicity. And then, of course, there is buyback, which means that the author himself buys back 1,000 or some odd copies of his own book. And this way, anybody can get published. How do you overcome such a challenge when the publisher is looking for money from you?
See, I think the publication landscape has quite dramatically changed in the last few years.
Hmm.
For one, now we don't need to depend upon the traditional publishers at all. There are wonderful opportunities at self-publishing which were not
Yes.
previously available.
Hmm.
We have platforms like Poti, platforms like Notion Press.
Yes.
Especially, I have published 2 titles with Notion Press, and they have very much streamlined their services. I mean, so they have different schemes. You can, based on your financial ability, you can opt for those schemes, and they will give different
Right.
services. So if we have to put in money to publish our books, then why to go for some trad publisher or vanity publishers who kind
Hmm.
of loot you and rob you, right?
Right. Right.
But having said this, there are, of course, advantages to publishing in a proper traditional publishing house, and not all publishers charge you. Yes, if every publisher does, I think most publisher take money and easily publish you, but uh, the good publishers also publish you because your writing is good, right?
Hmm.
And there are publishers like that, and I'm fortunate to have been published with them. For example, my menstruation book was published by Vitasta Publication from New Delhi. It is
Hmm.
run
Hmm.
by Renuka Verma.
Yeah.
And my Ishavasya Upanishad, which is just coming out in a few days, is being published by Subbu Publication, based in Karnataka in Hubli. It's run by Ritvik Subramanya. So these
So
publications,
you have overcome this hurdle, I would say, right? It has not
yes,
proven an insurmountable obstacle for you.
in some sense, yes. But yes, there are with every book you prepare. These are challenges that keep repeating because not all publishers publish all kinds of books. And for
Right.
example, for a academic book, and the things that you mentioned about buyback and
Hmm.
investing, these are more prevalent in academic publishers. Much more than in retail publisher. So
Right.
well-known names in academic publishers, they often ask the authors to fund 50% of their publication cost,
Hmm.
and they don't even give any royalty. They say that we don't even know whether book sells. So if the first edition sells, then we may think uh, for giving royalty in the second edition. But for that first edition also, you are supposed to either put in money or buy back the books. So there
Then
is a
there is
lot of
another
things that
challenge that I see
publishing.
among authors, which of course I haven't seen you doing, or you do it very sparingly. Once anybody on the left or the right gets a title published, then I see that over a period of, let's say, the next year or two, the only thing he does on social media is talk about his book. That kind of makes it monotonous. It almost makes him look like Rajdeep Sardesai trying to sell the book as to how Modi won 2014, and nobody is buying that book. So for 2 years he kept tweeting that he has written this book. So that is another challenge. You cannot bore your readers, yeah, because there is a lot that people expect from you, right? So there is a lady who wrote a book on how the culture of Ganikas used to be during the Maurya Empire. It's an excellent book. But then I got tired of her promotions. Every time I would see a message from her, it would be about the book. Come on, talk about something else also. So this is, of course, another challenge that you face, because even the publisher would expect you to sell your own book because they have spent money on it.
See, I think it all depends upon how you go about publishing. Now, to be honest, I have not mastered marketing of the book. I'm
Yes.
still a long way to go from that. But I have so many ideas, so many book projects that I cannot simply uh, spare to speak about like Rajiv Sardesai, the 2 years
Yes.
on a single book. I have a target in mind to bring out at
Yes.
least one book every year, if possible. But I have promoted my book, and throughout 2019, I did promote my book on menstruation, and in
Mm.
2020, I promoted my book on Samanya Dharma. Even today, I get invited to speak on menstruation topic, and wherever I speak, I do promote the book. So this is this happens. I mean, the golden period for book promotion is 3 to 6 months from the date of its publication. And after that, there is no meaning to keep repeating it again and again and again. You may
Right.
sparingly do it, but over the years, what I have realized in my 5 years journey as an author, it is not that I am promoting a product. It is not that I'm promoting a book or a talk or a article or anything. What I am promoting is myself, the identity of me as self and my ideas and thoughts. So
Yes.
these books and others are merely a means to promote that, means to promote my ideas, means
Writers
to
and
promote.
writers and
Yeah,
presenters finally come across as a personification of a group of ideas, which
yes,
cannot be denied. But then, Ashish, even on your wall, I see that you do it very, very sparingly. In fact, you do not do it at all. But if one goes through your Facebook timeline or Twitter timeline, as and when Upward comes up with a video, because Pragyata's articles are rarer than that. So you do share it on your timeline, but generally it's not that well, follow Upward on Twitter or follow Upward on Facebook. How is the marketing challenge to be overcome? Because there has to be somebody, if you are not saying it, somebody else must say it.
I think like in any entrepreneurial venture, any startup, I think it's first very important because I was fortunate to have worked in a different startup setting in adventure travel before I got into Pragyata. So I started another thing which was into adventure travel. And it was a sort of a learning experience for me in terms of how you identify the market, how things sell really, how you market stuff. And I figured that all extra like they say in cricket, no, I mean the shot जो है वो effortless होना चाहिए. The timing has to be right.
Right, right.
Similarly, your product has to speak to people, that it has to solve a specific problem.
Hmm.
And once you identify that problem and you design your product accordingly, then you don't have to do anything more because then the product will sell on its own because
Right,
people will be hungry to get that.
right.
So I think that has been my approach with both Pragyata and Upward, and more so with Upward because Upward is
Yes,
it's a
yes.
platform and it involves a lot more people than Pragyata.
Finally, how do you see the future course? I hope it does not sound like a cliche. Where do you see yourself 5 years down the line? That sounds like a corporate question. What I would like to see is how far do you see your message reaching society, different corners of society? How do we deal with the woke crowd, for example? Because there are others, there are leftists, for example, you cannot convert, you cannot influence. So there is a section that can be influenced, thankfully. There are children, there are teens, there are young adults to whom our message must reach. How are you going to ensure that, Ashish and Nitin? Yeah.
So one is the power of the message itself and
Yes.
how the foundation, the philosophical foundation of what you're saying, how you're able to articulate it, how coherent your message is, the presentation, the whole package. I mean, we also do animation, so that's part of the reason why why we went this way because we want to engage people visually as well. The artwork, everything has to be superlative.
Right.
I'm not sure if we reached there, but yeah, I mean, the effort is always to be the best uh, in the given the constraints that you have. We can't hire artists who who work for Pixar, but we can certainly work with a great team. We can build a great team and do all that. So all that constitutes a good product, like I said. And in the times to come, I think it is what we call alternative media today is going to get more and more relevant because now we are we migrated from an age of what we called an information age to an information deluge age. There is
Right.
so much information that people can't make sense of what's going on, and the noise to signal ratio is extremely high. So to filter out that noise and to give signal, that's the task cut out for any commentator, any opinion maker, any media outlet of that kind. And with that, like I said, the problem is clearly defined. If you're able to solve that problem, I think you'll obviously get more and more relevant and reach more and more.
Right, right. Nathan, you were recently blessed with a daughter. How would you ensure she does not grow up to join the woke crowd? Because
I don't think,
it's not just her. It's not just your daughter. I'm talking about that entire generation.
see, I think the narrative building, I mean, that is at the heart of the issue, because there is an information bombardment, and the narrative building capacity on the other side is too strong even now.
Yes.
But narrative building is a long-term process. It cannot be changed in a day or two. But as far as I see it, be it all this so-called alternate platforms, or be it individuals like me, or anybody, commentators and all, uh, what we need to do is to provide an alternative narrative on every issue that crops up. Uh, you take Pashubali, you take menstruation, you take abortion. There is so many topics, and we don't even realize the depth of colonialism, the mental colonization that we have had. That
Yes.
from very simple day-to-day thing to very complicated thing, our thinking has been kind of so drastic change that what we today think as true to our civilization is actually alien to our civilization. So
Right.
the challenge is very huge. Personally, what uh, I try to do, and what I will be doing in the next few years, is to tackle what I'm good at, one thing at a time, one issue at a time, very, very small issues, like writing an essay on a homosexual union, whether it is marriage or not, to writing books on with different issues, be it Vedanta, be it Dharma Shastra, whatever it is. So each of us who are interested must choose a niche subject and build upon that. I mean, there will be generalists who will take it further, but we also need specialists who will be working on refining views and understanding and frameworks in a particular field. And plus, the second aspect is we need to reach more and more people, to create more and more awareness. uh,
Right.
as many mediums, as many tools have to be used. It
For
may be
every
writing.
for every narrative, there has to be a counter narrative. It is like beginning with, let's say, the popular perception that Sri Ram was a bad husband, for example, a very popular perception among the woke crowd, or that he had unduly persecuted Shambuka in a part of the Ramayana which is questionable. And so from there on up to, when the documented history part of civilization begins, that is where you have Aryan invasion theory. Then you have caste system. Then you have, bogus concepts like somebody is a martial race, somebody else isn't. Everything that was a part of British propaganda and later happily taken up by the communist ecosystem needs a challenge. And also, it is not just placing that challenge on the public domain, but also letting people know that this challenge exists. It is not a one-sided affair. So thank you very much, Ashish and Nitin, for this wonderful session. It wasn't a debate. It was, I hope, an enriching, presentation from us, which our audience must have enjoyed. We would like your feedback. Please write us back with questions that we might have missed discussing in the course, because it's a never-ending subject. Tune in again for another session on a pertinent issue. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Nitin.
Thank you.
Vande Mataram.
Vande Mataram.